A very warm welcome to episode 4 of the Cricket Library podcast. I'm your host, Matt Ellis, and it has been an absolute pleasure doing this latest series during the Ashes. We've had some very enjoyable and engaging guests on the show. Nina Stevens kicked things off. We also heard from Greg Campbell and most recently, entertainer Marty Roan. And if you've missed any of those, I strongly recommend that you head to iTunes or Spotify or wherever it is you like to listen to your podcasts and catch up on those. But don't do that just yet. I want you to hang around and have a listen to this one. We are chatting today with someone who toured on the 1993 Ashes tour. He even picked up a hat-trick on that tour. He was a very distinguished first-class cricketer for New South Wales in their dominant era in the late 80s and into the early 90s. I am, of course, talking about Wayne Cracker Holdsworth. He is on today to discuss all things pertaining to his career, including where it all began. We'll talk about his time at East Hills Boys High School with a couple of famous names at that school. Well, they'd go on to be famous names. And the progression from grade cricket into putting on the baggy blue and playing for New South Wales, and what a magical debut he had. We'll talk about that one at the MCG back in January 1989. We'll talk the 1993 Ashes tour, of course, and a little bit of insight into the Julios and Nerds on that tour. I really get fascinated by the Julios and Nerds. There's some good insights there from Wayne about them. And of course, we could not talk to Wayne Holdsworth without mentioning his 49 not out off 18 balls in the Mercantile Mutual Cup back at the North Sydney Oval. This is a chat that you will enjoy for sure. Here it is, Wayne Holdsworth on the Cricket Library podcast. And it's a very warm welcome to the Cricket Library podcast, Wayne Holdsworth.
No worries, thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you on and great to be talking to you during an Ashes series. Now, can you tell us a little bit about where your cricket journey started?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Five-year-old boy brought out in the western suburbs of Sydney. I went to East Hills Boys, which was quite a dominant cricket school at the time. I was lucky enough to have Stephen and Mark Waugh a couple of years above me, and we had obviously a pretty decent cricket side at the time. So played my first grade game for Bankstown, I think when I was about 15, and played my first grade game when I was 19. Ended up playing 22 years with the one club, so pretty loyal guy, I guess, to the team who I represented, and I was lucky enough to play around with some good players at the time.
A pretty strong history there at the Bankstown Cricket Club. You mentioned the War Boys there. There were quite a lot of other New South Wales players that played in that era. Was that a bit of a driving force for you, having those guys in and around you when you're growing up, to give you a bit of a desire to see where you could take your cricket?
Yeah, I guess it has to. If you're surrounded by people who are probably at the top of their game, it makes you want to perform better, obviously, to try and impress them, but to see what lengths and heights you can reach yourself. And the fact that I guess the War Boys came from East Hills Boys High, I thought, well, if they can do it, potentially I can do it as well. And we got on quite well. So, and as you mentioned, Bankstown had a pretty rich cricket history. When I came through when I was in fifth grade, obviously had Jeff Thompson, Len Pascoe in first grade, and guys like Steve Smith, Steve Small, and we had David Friedman there as well. So there was a period there, I think, with the first grade side that I played with, we had 5 state players on the one side. So a sort of pedigree like that, I think you have to perform well, because it's either sink or swim in a team like that.
Now, you mentioned you made your debut as a 19-year-old in first grade. What was the progression like through the grades? Was it a pretty quick, rapid progression up the grades?
Yeah, I was a pretty driven sort of guy. So my plan was, I sort of looked, when I was in fifth grade, I looked at, obviously the players above me. My plan was to go up pretty much a grade per year. And then I broke it down and thought, okay, well, how do I do that? And then I looked at who the leading wicket takers were in each grade from the season before, and they had, somewhere between sort of 35 and 45 wickets. So that became my target. So every year I'd set myself a target of what the previous wicket taker took from the year before in that grade. And I was lucky enough, obviously, to go up one grade per year at the time and played first grade 4 years later. But, I mean, obviously plans always don't go that way. But, yeah, you know, as I said, I was a pretty driven individual and, you know, I set myself some pretty high targets to achieve. And luckily enough, you know, I didn't always achieve the targets I wanted from that year, but, you know, in terms of selections, you know, I still achieved what I wanted to there.
And going from being a first grader as a 19-year-old, you make your first class debut in January 1989. How long had you had in the first grade system prior to making that debut?
Season and a half. So yeah, it was funny because I played Aussie under 19s. I came through that system as well and stayed under 16s, and I played 2 years in the Aussie under 19s. So I guess I was on the radar a little bit with New South Wales selectors, and I was in the squad the year after my first grade season, and I was obviously getting talked about because of my pace. You know, I was a little bit quicker than most in the grades at that time. So I remember Greg Matthews walking up to me in the first training session at New South Wales Cricket, and he said, "Do you want some advice on how to get picked?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, sure." And he just said, "Hit people," which I thought was a bit strange, but he said, "We need people who can scare people." And he said, "I hear you can be one of those guys." And so, you know, and it was a bit strange because I was dropped from one of the state metro squads when I was 16, and I out-bowled everybody at that trial match. And I looked at the coach at the time and I said, "So why did I miss out?" And he said, "Mate, we just think you're too short to be a good quick bowler." And I guess that spurred me on because I looked at Malcolm Master, who was a hero of mine, and, you know, I'm 5'10", and I think he was just over 5'10" as well. So I thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And then, yeah, you know, I made that state squad, and then I was a net bowler for the touring teams when they had come over. So there was one particular tour when the West Indies came over, and I was a net bowler to Gordon Greenidge and Desmond Haynes and those guys. And I remember Desmond Haynes got interviewed, and they were talking about, you know, the Australian cricket team, and he mentioned my name. He said, "You're going to pick anyone, pick that kid over there." He said, "He's the fastest I've faced." And that went in the newspapers, and I think that's probably where it all turned.
Yeah.
And then it got to Christmas, and I was sort of getting talked about a little bit, but I thought my chance had gone because all the test players are pretty much still starting to come back into the side. And then I got picked in that match at the end of January to play the Vicks in Melbourne, and in that side there was only myself and Phil Emery had played Test cricket. So, you know, there's 10 guys that had or still were playing Test cricket. So, you know, I guess from that point of view, I thought, you know, I missed the boat, as I said, but, you know, to get picked there was, you know, obviously a dream come true, and then to play at the MCG was, you know, an even bigger achievement, I guess.
And how were the nerves going into that? Were you able to just kind of treat it as another game of cricket, or was it youthful exuberance and ready to show everyone what you could do?
It was a bit of everything, really, and I've got to give a bit of credit to Jeff Lawson here, because we got Whitney and Lawson opened the bowling, and you know, I sort of went, "Hang on a minute," but yeah, okay, they're testing coming, so even though I was faster than the both of them, but
yeah.
And then we had the drinks break, and then I think it was about another few hours, and then Jeff just walked up and said, "You're on next over." And I said, "But I'm not ready."
Yeah.
And he said, "You're not at Bankstown now. You're on next over." He said, "So get ready." So I really had no choice. And then I was warming up, and then at the top of the mark, I didn't really have a chance to take it all in. And Michael just walked over and said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm just going to try and bowl a straight one." He said, "Perfect." And then he walked away. And then I bowled the ball, and I remember it was all a bit of a blur at the time, but I remember I saw Phil Emery's hands go up, and then I realised that I just flicked the bail of Dave Watmore's stump, so I took a wicket with the first ball. So obviously that doesn't happen a lot. The weird thing about that was when we were flying down on the plane, Michael Whitney had a book that's just been released from New South Wales called True to the Blue. And he's a real stats man, a records man. He's looking at all these things and records, and he says, "Here's wicket on first ball, here's 5 wickets in innings on debut, you know, here's hat trick," and he's rattling off all these things. He said, "You could do this before again." And I just stand like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah.
And then, 4 balls later, I had Jamie Siddons caught it slip, and then on the 6th ball, I had Dean Jones drop the slip of Peter Howard. So I had 2 for none in my first over, and a catch dropped on the 6th ball. So at the end of that over, I was walking down, and I had 2 for none, and I thought, well, if I pull a hamstring here or do whatever and never play again, I'm going to be regarded as the best bowler ever taking 2 for none in my first over on debut. But ended up with 6 for 55, so it wasn't a bad start.
Yeah, great start.
And then second innings, I was brought back down to earth with a thudding crash, and I think I had 1 for 70 off about 12 overs.
Yeah, right. So a bit of a reality check in the second innings, but the feeling of taking a 6 for on the MCG on debut really got your first class career flying.
Yeah, I guess that, to take figures like that, in your first game, it's quite rare. And I guess the way that I got them as well, like to have a lot more, who was a seasoned player and knocking sort of stumps over. And then look at Jamie Simmons with a bounce. So it was a lot fuller, but I was just so nervous because I had the wicket and I didn't know what to do. And I just stuck in my hand and ended up being a bounce that pretty much was going to hit the badge on his helmet. He just stuck his gloves up and it went up in the air. But once I settled, it was a bit weird. It's like I said, because I had a couple of wickets, I think that probably put me in good stead because I was a little bit calmer. I knew I could take a wicket. I guess if I went for 4 or 5 runs and over my first 3 or 4 overs, it would have made it a little bit tougher.
Yeah. And New South Wales in that era, you won the Shield 89-90, 92-3, 93-4, and I think New South Wales played in 5 Shield finals in a row.
Yeah.
The culture of New South Wales cricket at the time, can you describe what made it so special?
Steve Richard had a lot to do with it as coach. I remember when he took over, that was in my second year in the squad. He just came in with this real old school approach. He did everything until he got it right. He didn't leave the field until he got it right. And he called a spade a spade. And if you had a bad day, he'd walk up and tell you had a bad day. So, he was brutally honest. And I think at the time, a lot of the players, some players probably didn't take that well, but then the ones who thrived probably did. And then he just created a good, strong winning culture through our training and just through the way that he made us train and prepare for games. And he was quite thorough in his research with players that we played against as well. I mean, this is all the times before we had obviously all the software and everything we do now. But and also, at the SCG, that was in the days when it spun like a top. And, we had Greg Matthews and Adrian Tucker and Peter Taylor. So I think there was a period there for 4 years we didn't lose a game at the SCG. So it was a bit of a fortress for us as well. We had this aura, I guess, when we played there. We were virtually unbeatable at the SCG. So we always had at least a guaranteed 5 wins a season, which get you in the Shield final.
And the season 92-93, was that one of the more memorable ones for you? 53 wickets in the season, a dominant display in that Shield final. I think it was against Queensland, going into an Ashes year. How much did it mean to you to be producing the goods in 92-3 in that lead up to the Ashes?
Yeah, it was a strange one because I was dropped from the team in, I think it was early January, just through lack of wickets. I think I had 12 wickets in 5 games or 14 wickets in 5 games or something like that. So I was playing New South Wales second 11 down in Melbourne. And I thought, that was pretty much the year over for me. And then I got 6 wickets in the second 11 game and I missed I think it was the next Shield game, and I played the one after that. And then, it all just turned around. I took 40 wickets in 5 games and 3 sevens in a row. And then obviously I finished with that 7 for 41 in the Shield final. And I remember, walking off, and one of the journos interviewed me and he said, you're a fair chance of going to the Ashes Tour. What are your thoughts? And I said, look, Michael Whitney missed out in 89 with 50 wickets, and I've had a pretty ordinary year for the start. I haven't finished, I finished well, but I'm probably a little bit inconsistent to be picked. And I thought maybe I'm still a chance, but I was sort of hedging my bets because I wasn't renowned as, a bowler when he's off, he's really off. So I didn't know whether the selectors would take that into account or whether they're purely just picking on the form that I finished at the end of the year. And luckily enough, they did give me a crack. And, I can sit back now and say I was lucky enough to go on the Ashes Tour.
And a pretty strong bowling group on that Ashes Tour. It was the one when Shane Warne really rose to prominence and Big Merv and Paul Rifle leading that attack with Craig McDermott succumbing to an injury there. Can you tell us your recollections of your time on that tour?
Yeah, it was on reflection. Like when I got back, I was a little bit disappointed because going into that first test with my numbers and my stats, because you used to get pages each week about where you were sitting in terms of numbers, so you knew what your form was like, what your bowling average was like, and I was up there with Merv and Craig, and I was doing well, and I was the sort of bowler that always needed to keep bowling. If I had 2 or 3 weeks off for some reason, just because of the way I bowled, I'm not sure I'd lose it.
Yep.
So, I needed to bowl consistently. And then I thought it was a fair chance of getting picked in the first test. And then when I wasn't, I approached Mark Taylor and said, hey, can you give me a reason as to why? Just so, something I'm not doing right or, where am I at? and he said they just wanted to go with a left-hander, and they picked Brendan Julian.
Yeah.
So from that moment, I knew he was going to play, obviously, at least the first 2 tests. They're not going to pick someone and drop them after 1 test or 2 tests and potentially play 3. So the only way I thought I'd get picked after that was if there was injuries or, just circumstance, and they decided to give me a crack. But those were the days as well where there was no rotation policy. So if bowlers were fit, they played. So it made it, increasingly difficult for me. And then obviously you had Shane Warne, weaving his magic, and Tim May at the other end. So the bowling attack pretty much stayed the same for the whole series, apart from when Craig went home. And then obviously Brendan played a bit more. But I was on standby for the last test at the Oval, and Alan all the way through said, "You'll play at the Oval." And then when I was on standby for Tim May, he had a hamstring strain, and he bowled really well. And then I bowled well in the nets, and then Alan walked up to me that night when I was on standby, and he said, "Look, even if Tim's 50% fit, we're going to play him." He said, "I just got to let you know that you're in our eyes." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. Look, I get it." And amazing played. We lost the test, and Devon Malcolm cleaned us up, and it was one of the fastest wickets we played on for the whole series. So that was a disappointing thing, because I just thought if I had a shot there, that may have changed things for me a little bit, but not to be, and that's the way it goes.
And other highlights on the tour, I suppose you get asked about this a lot. Your hat trick against Derbyshire. Can you talk us through that and what that was like, taking a hat trick in Australian colours?
Yeah, that's another interesting story, because I think the day before I had one for, I think it was 70 or 80 off 9 or 10 overs, so I was getting hit all over the place. And I remember sitting at the bar with Steve Waugh that night, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I can't bowl any worse." And he said, "Yeah, I agree." So he said, "Let's have a beer." And we had a couple of beers. And next, I bowled this massive burning out swing. I thought, that's a bit weird. I didn't do that yesterday. And then I took 4 wickets in my next, I think, 15 balls or something with the hat trick. So it was a complete, turnaround from one day to the next day. And I finished with, I think it was 5 for 100 or something. But the unfortunate thing was, for the guy who was the hat trick wicket, he actually didn't hit it. So I've got video highlights of Tim Zura taking the catch, and he sort of goes to throw it the first slip. Yeah. And then you just see him look straight back at the umpire, and then everyone starts patting me on the back. And I remember hearing the umpire behind me go, "Yes, that's out." And the guy hit his pad, and it was one of those ones where you could sort of go, "Yeah, he hit it or he didn't," but I could see that he probably didn't hit it.
Yeah.
But the poor guy was given out, and I got a hat trick. But, you take the good with the bad. There's other balls were involved. I've probably got guys there get out. So, and the funny part was, Alan Border walked up with the ball, and he said, "You're not going to keep this ball up." And I said, "Well, what do you do when you get 100? And he went, "Yeah, good point." And that was where he left it.
Oh, there you go. So a bit unlucky for the batter on that occasion, but a hat trick all the same. And I think you were quoted in the paper as saying that the last time you had a hat trick prior to that was in the backyard bowling to your sister. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I was on a heap of hat tricks as a kid, but never got one.
Yep.
It's just one of those things, And fortunately, to get one for your country is obviously a high honour. And I sit back now and think, wow, I've got a hat trick from the country. But I never. It's one of those things. I only got the one, and that's the way it went. There's other guys got 3, 4, 5, 6, through juniors and things like that. But only the one for me my whole life. And
on that tour, meeting the Queen, how was that?
Yeah, there's a lot of protocol that goes on there. So you're told you can only say "sir" or "ma'am" as they come to greet you. You can't ask them any questions unless they ask you a question. You can't put a foot out of the line. And then I remember Merv, he said to me, "I'm going to just tell her a joke." And Merv was that sort of guy. And we said, "You can't." He said, "No, I'm going to tell her a joke." So she would walk down first, and then you would have Prince Philip walk down after her. So there'd be the Queen first, and then Prince Philip. So I was looking down to the left to see what Merv was going to do as he met the Queen, not realising I had Prince Philip in front of me. And then Alan looked at me and he said, "Wayne," and I went, "Sorry," and I shook his hand. That mean he had a smirk on his face. I just didn't know what to do. But it was an interesting time because we got a few wickets down, and if we knocked over the last couple before tea, we're actually going to go and meet the Queen at the castle. But we didn't manage to knock over those last couple of wickets before tea, so we met them on the ground. But a tour like that, to walk away and say I've met the Queen, is something not many people obviously get the chance to do. So I've got the photo at home, and
One of the other things I loved about the culture of Australian cricket at the time was the whole Julios and nerds groupings. There's something that you read about in Stephen Waugh's tour diaries and so forth. Was that good fun, being in the Julios and the nerds? You were one of the Julios, I take it?
Yeah, apparently, yeah. So the captain decided who was in which group, and then, there was a number of activities over the course of the tour just to try and break things up and have a bit of fun. There was 10-pin bowling, various different other sort of just fun activities. And, whoever came last basically had this outfit which we call the Daktari, and the Daktari is like a safari outfit that you had to wear for the next team function. Luckily, I didn't have to wear it. Oh, no, I did. That's right, I did have to wear it once. But, that was good fun because that was 93 girls. Like, we were there for 4.5 months, I think.
Yep.
And then after that, they changed it to the one-day side going and then the test side going. And now it's back to, obviously, 17 guys go, but the format's much shorter now. The format that we had was you'd play a game before the test, then the test, then the game after the test, then another game before the next test and after the test. And that was how you went through the whole series, whereas now they go over there, they play 2 matches before the first test and then they're into it. So, on a tour like that for 4.5, 5 months, you have to do something because you're in each other's pockets. You're in a bus every day. It can get quite, not claustrophobic or cabin fever, but it just breaks up the monotony a bit. But we're lucky enough to have guys like Merv Hughes there who, there's never a dull moment with him, just to make things a bit more fun.
Any standout nerds? Standout nerds on the tour?
Tim May, classic, yeah. Tim May's clothing was straight out of Kmart and Lowe's. He actually thought he looked all right, but you'd see him some days and he just, what he was thinking, but he was by far the number one nerd, and I think he was quite proud of it as well.
Yeah. And on the Julio front, your Brendan Julians, your Mark Wars, your Shane Warnes, they would have been classic.
Oh, yeah, they were the leaders. Damien Martin was in there as well. So
yeah,
but Brendan Julian, he was the king of the Julios, I guess. He was the one that got the most fan mail from the girls. And, the hair was never out of place, and he always dressed immaculately. And again, like, you had the king of the nerds who always, I think, pushed the envelope to become the king nerd, which Tim made it. You had Brendan Julian, who knew he had a reputation to uphold, so he would always, as I said, dress immaculately. He was always cleanly shaven and, had the best fragrances.
Now coming back to Australia, the following summer, another memory that I have strongly from your career was not with the ball, and probably one that you still get asked about a lot to this day. Take us back to North Sydney Oval, October 1993. You come in to bat number 9 and you pulverised Tasmania. You smashed 49 not out off 18 balls. You're in a 56-run partnership with Phil Emery, which I noticed Phil only faced 7 balls, so you're obviously farming the strike as well. Was that your greatest day out with the bat?
For New South Wales, definitely, yeah. My highest first-class score was 34 not out. But that day then, it was one of those days that just everything went right. I remember when I was walking out the bat, Mark Taylor just said, if you can get 280, 290, I'll be happy, which was about 30 more runs. And when I walked out the bat, Phil said, what's the plan? He said, mate, we've just got to bat, the next 4 or 5 overs, and if we can get to 280, 290, he's happy. And then I just started swinging, and then, as I said, it was just one of those days, everything I swung at, I just connected with, mate. If they didn't go over the fence, they went into the fence. And, it was the year that they had the fastest 50, and I think Damien Martin was leading at that year. I think it was $5,000 to whoever got it, and he had it in 34 balls, so I was way ahead of that. And then off the last ball, I needed 3, and only managed to get a 2, and that was it. I got 49 off 18, and then Mark Ward set a trap, so he told it to clap me when I came in, and everyone sit with their heads down, just pretend like nothing had happened. And then I came back down and walked in the dressing room, and there was complete silence. And I'm looking at it all going sort of, what's the deal here? And then Mark Wall looked up. He said, well, if you could bowl, you could be a good all-rounder. And that was just where he left it. He then signed that in the back of the bat. He said, to Wayne Holdsworth, all the best. If you could bowl, you'd be a great all-rounder, Mark Wall. So I batted with that bat for the rest of the year.
Oh, classic stuff. And you're involved in a couple of run-outs in that game as well. You picked up a wicket. But one of the things I noticed about that game, it's the only time that Richard Cheekwee bowled in domestic one-day cricket. Can you tell us a bit about his bowling? None for three.
His bowling was atrocious. We did that a couple of times in a few games. It was more when the games pretty much had the result was done. There was nowhere to go. Phil Emery bowled in the game they played. I think it was in South Australia. But yeah, Richard, when he came on the bowl, he said he bowled leg spin, but they were, I don't know what they were. They didn't look like leg spin and landed somewhere near the stumps, and that was that. But yeah, you wouldn't call it bowling, put it that way.
Yeah. Now, life after cricket for Wayne Holdsworth, what's the transition out of first-class cricket been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a mixed bag. I've been involved in beverages for a number of years in sales, probably pretty much since my last couple of years with New South Wales Cricket. I worked for Heineken for a number of years, and I worked for Tyrrell's Wines, who were a sponsor of New South Wales Cricket for 5 or 6 years. And then I had that coconut water company I was involved with for about 4 or 5 years as well. And now I've just started a new role last 6 months with a company called Riff. I supply all the muffins and burgers and everything in McDonald's, and bread rolls and pastries in Holdsworth and BP and Caltex and things like that. So I'm the business development manager there, and I'm really enjoying it. It's something completely different. As I said, I've been involved in drinks pretty much my whole life. And to go into a baking business, it's something I'm learning about every day. And it's good because it's a new challenge, and I think having a new challenge has sort of given me a bit of a zest to sort of pick things up again and keep going. I was getting a little bit stale with where I was at previously, so it's always good to, they always say a change is as good as a holiday. So, yeah, things have been good. I'm still involved in the game. I'm bowling coach with the Mossman Cricket Club, and I do a lot of personal stuff as well with one-on-one. So cricket still is a part of my life, and it always will be.
And you still find time to watch the cricket? You've been watching the Ashes this year?
Yeah, I've been watching the Ashes as well. I don't stay up super late. I'll probably watch the first session and I hit the sack, but it's been an interesting series and certainly been turned on its head. But the last match, with Archer coming in and bouncing the hell out of everybody, but it's added certainly to the firepower for the Poms now. And I think it's getting a bit more spark to the series. I sort of, before the team went over, I was asked how I thought they went, and I was always a bit wary of, because obviously Jimmy Anderson I thought would play, and our guys don't play the swinging ball well over there, and the ball that moves off the wicket, which has been sort of proven a little bit with David Warner at the moment. I think we've been lucky that Jimmy hasn't played, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it could have been a little bit different, and obviously Steve Smith has just been out of the box since he's been there. He's been incredible. So I think this test will be a true indication of where the team's at, where we think we are.
And yourself being the all-time record wicket taker at Bankstown grade cricket, 511 wickets in first grade, phenomenal numbers. Do you still get back and see the odd game of grade cricket from time to time?
Yeah, well, obviously being bowling coach at Mossman, I'm at grade cricket every weekend, and I still stick my head in the Bankstown every now and then to have a look. Obviously that was a big part of my life. I played 21 years there, I think. So, they gave me opportunities, to do what I did, and they were a great place to play. So that'll never, I guess, leave me, and the Bankstown will always be a part of my cricket life. And and so I'm coaching as well. So grade cricket still plays a reasonable part of my life.
Yeah, that's excellent, Wayne. And thank you so much for giving us your time. It's really been interesting hearing your stories and hearing about your journey in cricket and what you're up to these days. It's been great having you on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
A massive thank you to Wayne Holdsworth for joining us on this edition of the Cricket Library podcast. What a great story. Someone who rose through the grades in grade cricket, played first grade at 19, went on to have the opportunity to play for New South Wales, debuting in a team that was star-studded. Only he and Phil Emery, who hadn't played for Australia at that point in time, taking a wicket with your first ball in first-class cricket. How good's life at that stage? And then knocking over another one in your first over. And then doing what he did with the ball for New South Wales consistently over a number of years, playing in those Sheffield Shield wins, and New South Wales being a dominant force in domestic cricket for a number of years there. And great to hear those insights around the culture of the team and what Steve Rickson brought to the group. And, of course, hearing about the Ashes Tour in 1993, what a thrill that must have been to be a part of that. And for him to take a hat-trick on that tour is something that he'll long remember, even though it may not have been out. Well, sounds like it wasn't out, actually, the hat-trick ball, but you'd definitely be claiming it and remembering it all the same. No DRS back in those days with Australia playing Derbyshire there. But a great chat with Wayne Holdsworth, and looking forward to more great chats in the coming weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast via iTunes or whichever podcast subscription service you prefer to use, iTunes, Spotify, wherever. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on anything, and have a listen back to anything that you've missed. We've had Nina Stevens, Greg Campbell, Marty Roan, and tell your friends about it, give us a rating, and spread the word about the Cricket Library podcast, and we'll be bringing you more great episodes in the future. But from Matt Ellis, it is bye for now.